Hi friends, this will be the hard mode version for the AutoCAD theater conversion assignment. Our first step will be to download these two DWG files. Those are our AutoCAD files. We're just going to download those and leave those in our downloads so you have them. Then we want to go ahead and set up a new, I need to be in Vectorworks, create a new file from our template. Okay. Our template is coming up. Here we are in our template file. Great. Those are our first two steps. Our third step, as always, is to save our file. Save as? I want to save a file. There we go. Okay, we'll start here. We're going to start a new folder. This will be 6 AutoCAD Theater Conversion. This process will also work if you're creating your 3D model from a PDF. It'll just be a few more steps in that case. We are supposing that we are lucky enough that we have our actual AutoCAD file that we can bring in and convert. So I've created a file now. I'm going to save that in there. I'm also going to grab that. So I have my folder with my stuff in it. I'm going to go ahead and put those two download files in there. So if I open up another Finder window, I can come grab my two reference files and put those into the same folder with my current project. Great. So we will be using our other layers over here in layer visibilities, but we're also going to notice as we bring in these AutoCAD files that they come in with their own information. So there are two reference files that you've received. You've received the XPlan file and the XSec file. This is a different standard that one of my friends uses. One of my friends uses an AutoCAD drafter. So he's brought in each of those files and then saves them accordingly as his template files. We will go ahead and back into Vectorworks. We will use the import function, and we're going to import a single DXF or DWG. We need to now go find our CAD class, and we're going to start by bringing in the plan file. And it needs to have access to it. It's going to ask a bunch of questions, and we would want to use inches. That is the correct choice. And we're going to let everything else convert accordingly. And that is now going to come in. We're going to get some random fonts and stuff like that. Okay, import succeeded. So now it has created a new layer. I'm going to move that layer to the bottom. So you see if I grab the numbers over in the layer stacking order, I can pick up my layers and I can move them up and down. I'm going to move that plan to the bottom of the stack, okay? I'm now going to go bring in my section drawing in the same way. So I'm going to go ahead and import DXF DWG, import my section, import that, same, let it do what it wants to do to bring it all in. Now I have that as, again, a separate layer. So I'm going to just be referencing these two as I work. I do want to take my section drawing and just kind of pull it off to the side so that it isn't in the way of things. This is also where we're going to use our different layer options, right? Where we can show snap others, gray snap others, gray snap modify, whatever. So we're going to be able to select all of the stuff, right? You can also use Command A for select all. And then I'm going to just Command M, move the whole thing in an X off that direction of like 20 feet to try and get it clear of my other file. And this is a big theater, so that's not enough. Great. Okay. So now I have a section view that I can use as a reference, and I have my plan view. Now, neither of these are 3D objects, right? Both of these are flat drawings, and this is that plan view, the looking straight down version. This is the section view, the looking to the side version, okay? We're going to want to create our new file in 3D. And so we will keep these two as references, but we will not actually be using them to create this 3D file. We're going to be building our file on our theater floor plan and then on our lighting positions, layers, and etc. Okay. The next thing we need to do is to make sure that our drawings are in the correct scale, right? So one of the things that you'll notice, and we can just double click on our Design Layers tab and it will open up this organization panel. You'll notice that our plan and our section are not in the same scale as the rest of our drawing. So the rest of our drawing is in 1:48, which is 1/4 inch scale. Our plan and section AutoCAD files have come in at 1:50, and that's just a relic of AutoCAD, right? So they're still in inches, which is the important thing, right? The measurements are still true, but the scale of the drawing overall has come in at the incorrect scale in terms of matching the rest of our project. What this does in the context of our drafting file, it means that Vectorworks is only going to show you things that are in the same scale as the layer that you're working in. So if I were to go to the theater floor plan scale, everything else would disappear. So if I'm like, hi, I'm on the theater floor plan, those two files have now disappeared on me, and that is because they are in a different scale than the scale of the rest of our design layers. So it's pretty easy to update this. You can just come up here when you have a layer that is selected, right? The layer scale here is in an engineering scale of 1:50. What we actually would want is 1/4 inch scale. That will update that, right, into the rest of our file. So now this is the only one that's still in a weird scale, and we can change that to 1/4 inch as well. Okay, so now all of our layers are the same, right? They're all in the same world. The next step that I'm going to take, the format that I'm aiming for, right, is sort of an important piece of this equation, okay? So I want my file, my ultimate drafting file, right, to have an origin that is the same as the origin of my drawing. And this is important because it makes it easy for us to snap different people's drawings together. Anytime I'm creating a theater template, my goal is going to be that the center or the origin of the theater drawing is the same as the origin of my drafting file in order to make it easy, right, for everyone to know what's going on. Though the origin being the like crisscross of the XY axis, the origin of a theater in our context, in our world, is where the center line crosses the plaster line. Or in a black box theater, it's typically where the center line crosses the center line in the other direction, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is take our Garry Marshall plan that we are basing all of our stuff on, choosing our center line and plaster line, which the center line is obvious. It'll be that mirror line through the center of the file. The plaster line will be, we'll use this edge of the stage as the plaster line, right? This horizontal straight line. So everything that's sort of before the thrust goes out into the space will be our reference for our plaster line. And we will then orient our drawing so that that point is the origin of the file. So I'm going to first come into the X-Plan layer, which is all of this stuff, select all, move this puppy kind of out of my way for the moment, all right? You'll see there's a lot of different colors and stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and force select this center line, and what that should do is activate its class, and it hasn't done that, but that's okay. We're going to just duplicate that center line. It's yellow, so it's a little bit hard to see. I'm going to X key, right? Snap it back to the center of the deal, and then rotate it by 90 degrees. Did I get it? Not quite. Snap, horizontal. Okay, and then I'm gonna just snap it to that front edge. Now I have an insertion point, right? I have two lines, right? I have my horizontal and my vertical center lines. So now I can align things to that point. So I've now created the axes of my project here. That's a good step one. My next move needs to be to create the origin for the file as a whole. And I'm going to do that on my theater floor plan layer. I'm going to pick up what's called the 3D locus tool. And the 3D locus tool is only going to appear in top plan view, right? You're not going to be able to see your loci, which are just points in space in top view. And it's switching me when I click there back. It's switching me back to a 3D view because a locus also has a Z height. When I switch into top plan view, now I can see the sort of icon of that object. Now if I click on it, it's got, I hit pretty close to the center of the document, but I can now give it a very precise position in X, Y, and Z space at the center of my whole file, okay? So that 3D locus is now going to be where I align my Garry Marshall, like the center, right, of my Garry Marshall drawing. The other thing I'm going to do before I get too far down the road, right, is I'm going to flip this whole thing upside down. And the reason is that the stage is over here and the audience is over there. And anytime that I'm working on a drafting, I'm frequently going to be flipping myself up into a 3D view. And for me, I want it to be the intuitive thing of I move into a 3D view and I'm looking at the stage rather than looking at the house. And when I sort of flip my project up into 3D, my intuition says that the stage should be farther from me, should be away, and the house should be near. And so I'm going to flip this whole drawing upside down in order to achieve that starting point. So to do that, I select everything. And again, we can use Select All, Command A to do that. Pick up my rotate tool, hit that center point, go completely vertical, and then flip 180 degrees. You can also rotate and type in that measurement, but I didn't do it that way. Then I'm going to, and this is important to kind of zoom in to make sure I've picked it up from that center point. And because I have placed a locus, I can now snap center of that drawing to my 3D locus. Okay, so I've now set up my file, placed my X plan at that locus, at that center. So that is going to be really helpful to me as I continue to work through this project, okay? Some things to know and understand about imported AutoCAD files. AutoCAD does not have design layers, right? AutoCAD works primarily and only in classes, and that may look different in an AutoCAD file if you were to open it up in AutoCAD, but when you look at your drawing organization, they only have classes versus sheet layers, right? Or whatever they call it, paper space, I think is what it is in AutoCAD. So if you come over here, you're going to see a whole bunch of all caps things which have come in, and those are all the different classes from this AutoCAD import, right? So 0 is their default. It's the none class in Vectorworks. Acoustical is this pink texture that is going around, wrapping around the outside of the room. The aisle layer seems to be the entire seating riser. The center line is obviously that yellow. Connector strip is, I assume, something to do with where the plugs are in the walls, right? The doors are their own, etc., etc. Okay? So each of these are their own layer, or their own class in this file, right? You'll see that that's also turning things on and off over here in the section view because the classes are the same between the two AutoCAD files. So that's just a point of reference to know, okay? If we are working in here, because this has come in as an AutoCAD file, we can do things like this center line is very hard to see. So if I go in to edit the class, right, its graphic attributes are now attached to its class, and I can say, hey, maybe instead of being bright yellow, which I can't see, we go to black, right, and we do the same thing in terms of our pen style, where we make this black, We use a different line type, right? So if we are using, there are all these different, again, line types have come in with us. These are the all caps ones. There are Vectorworks attributes in the libraries. And if we pop open line types and scroll down, there's some like silly ones at the top. We can scroll down and get the ISO ones. And we would want the ISO dashed long short, right? So a long short line, this is the standard for center lines. So we can change it to that. We can make it a thinner line because it wouldn't be a very heavy line, right? And let it sort of exist in that way. As long as this use at creation checkbox is created, it will now convert it, okay? So now it's looks like a center line and it's a lighter line weight, so it's easier for us to like navigate it, see it, know where it is in the file. So that's useful to me, okay? So that'll be something that I would do as I'm sort of bringing stuff in. The other thing I'll probably do is like turn off maybe acoustical. Maybe I don't need to see that bright pink. Maybe I'll turn off the one that was the hatch, right? Maybe I'll turn that off for now, just so that my drawing is a little cleaner. And then the last thing is this green, and I don't know what it is, but if I select it, it says the class is track. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off for now in case of needing it, right, later. But right now I don't need that track. I can just work based on this file. This is like in the options for our layers. There are options about showing and snapping and modifying others. Usually I leave my class options in that mode, show, snap, modify, but I make sure that my layers option is gray snap or show, snap, others. So I'm going to switch to show, snap, others. This will mean that as I'm building my file on my theater floor plan, I can see and snap to the existing AutoCAD document, but I can't accidentally F it up as I work, and that matters to me, right? That's important because that's going to allow me to do the stuff I need to do without making it, you know, more complicated than it needs to be. Okay, so I have now brought this file in. I have plopped it down. I have centered it on my page. I've flipped it 180. So now I'm kind of ready to start turning this into a theater. And I'm going to save it at this point, and then I will come back in another video and talk about adding in the basic form of the room. Cool. Thanks.